What is disease in the body?
I would call it a symptom. The body is just screaming out and saying to the human being who's got the issue with the liver, please have a look at this. But most human beings have never been taught how to read the body. So they get some pills, injections, cream, whatever it is. If someone has a liver problem, I know they have anger issues or guilt issues, or maybe both. The heart is about love. The pancreas is about betrayal. Like, everything means something. The neck is about being stubborn and rigid. Look at the trigger point. What created that anger? What created the fear, wherever it is in the body? Like, every single body part means something. There's something that caused the disease, the symptom, something that created it, and there's a different reality. If you go down that road, they look inside a kind of a problem and solution set system. So I've got a rash on my arm. So, okay, let me provide a solution, which is a cream or some drugs. And the human being may relieve that symptom, but most of the time that rash will come back later on because they've not taken away the trigger point, the creation point, the thing that started it, the original anger, fear, guilt, trauma, whatever it was. We go into the deepest part of the biological computer, the body and the brain, and we find out what created it. And childhood, it can be a good starting point. But what we'll try and do is go as far down the timeline as we can. So whenever we go into a healing session, what I would always say, I'd ask this question: please show me something I don't know to help me facilitate the healing of this incredible human being. And then the quantum field would open up. I'd start to see information, and my aim would be to go as far down the timeline to find the deepest root trigger in space-time, which could be 1,000 years ago, 3 million years ago, could be on another planet, a different timeline, or multiple timelines. And we'd find that reality field and then change it. Because the body and brain is a biological computer. So when you go into the back end of the system and you change the code, things shift on the front end. Now, it can happen in childhood. The original trigger point could be childhood, but childhood is like tip of the iceberg. When you start going back into past lives, which aren't really past, they're only past in this kind of linear time construct that we use here on planet Earth. There's no future, there's no past. Once you get out of the body and into the field, everything's now. So we'd want to go as far into the deep now as we could and make changes. And it's like a website. Imagine you've got a website that's yellow, and you want to change it to green. You're going to get a computer programmer. They're going to change the code in the back end, and it's going to change from yellow to green on the front end. This is no different. Basic energetic protocols for your own body, for your home, for your business, and all that is, I feel, mission critical. Even if you just get your palm and you just gently rub the inside of it for 4 or 5 seconds, and then put your hands together like this, you can feel the energy. Some people are more sensitive to it, some people are less sensitive. When you start to live in a really, really, really present state of awareness, when you've got a clean diet, when you do breath work, you meditate, you activate your pineal gland, which is like a Stargate, it's an antenna, it decodes information from the space. So when you start to practice this work, then you can go into a space and you can really, really feel. I mean, most people will have had a time in their life where they've gone into a room and they've felt really great, really happy. They've gone into another room and they feel, something's not right here. That's energy. That's your intuition picking up on the room, picking up on the field. And absolutely everything is connected. If you break it down scientifically, like, they've done tests where they get a cell in New York and they split it. And they take one piece of the cell to London and they keep one in New York. And they do things to the cell in London or New York, and it happens to the other cell in the other country, because everything's connected. Like, if I'm working on someone at distance, I can bring up a hologram of them, quantumly entangle that hologram with you or whoever it is on the planet, and I can work on it here in my space. But what happens to the hologram happens to the person physically in real time. Yeah, quantum entanglement is how we do our work, but everybody's picked up on energy at some point. You could go into a room and feel a bit fearful. It doesn't mean that you're fearful. It means that there's fear in the room, not necessarily in the space, but maybe within some other humans. And you're just feeling what they're feeling. For me, imagination is reality. Like if I see something in the field, it's there. You know, people say, oh, you know, I had this brilliant idea and I've created this new space rocket, or I've created a new phone, or I've designed a new train, or I've designed this. It's something new. But no one ever really invents anything. All people do is download from the field. So they have a download, then they create it and they call it an invention. But no one ever invents anything. And I think the other thing to point out as well, like when you go into a room, there's mirrors too. Mirrors and triggers. So you can walk up to another human being and they behave a certain way, they speak in a certain way, and that mirrors back to you something that you need to work on. It happens all the time, but most people don't want to look at their own shadows. So a lot of people, oh my God, it's all love and light. And most of those people are trying to avoid their shadows. Real, true embodiment is when you bring the light and the shadow into equilibrium, into that balancing point. And people in our environment are the perfect mirrors and triggers to help us see the parts of us that we need to work on. But most people, instead of embracing it, they run. And also looking into my own self and seeing where these triggers came from, because they came from childhood, but they were much, much deeper in other realities. When a traumatic event happens in someone's life, let's say it's just in this reality, and they get angry, or they're in guilt, or they're in fear, or whatever it is, there's some kind of adrenaline spike in the body. And then what happens is people, they don't deal with that, they don't transmute it, they don't release it in whatever way that is. And so it stays in the cells, and then a month later, 4 weeks later, they're playing this stuff out in their head constantly. And so they kind of add in more of this adrenaline on an unconscious level. And then, you know, every now and again, something else will happen in their life, like another mirror or another trigger will come in, and they'll respond in the same way, either anger or fear or guilt or whatever it is. And so it adds more adrenaline. Eventually the body becomes acidic and it starts turning into some form of disease, you know, mental, emotional, physical. If the human being doesn't look at it, it's going to get worse and worse, and the symptoms going to get louder and louder and louder. And most people don't really deal with it until it gets really serious. Oh my God, I've got liver cancer. Oh my God, I've got this. Oh my God, my eyesight's gone. And that's when people start to look. But if we do the work now, like, we don't need to be ill to get healthy. We should be just getting healthy and be healthy 24/7, 365 by, you know, using breathwork, meditation, exercise, cold showers, whatever it is, like mixing all these ingredients together, intermittent fasting, and people can stay tip top. And then these things are never going to creep in. But most people don't. They wait till it's kind of almost too late, and then it's a race then to save themselves. We're in Sedona and we're doing a training. There's a lady that was there and she had diverticulitis in her belly. I was watching what was going on, and there was a guy working on her. Now, in the guy's mind and in his vision, what he saw in her belly was loads of popcorn. So what he did is he got an imaginary like popcorn container like you get at the cinema, and he put it under the belly, and all the popcorn started coming out. Now there's cartons full of popcorn. So what he does is he starts feeding it to her energetically, and the diverticulitis cleared up. When I watched it, I saw fish swimming around in the stomach. And so what I did is I would have put a fish tank underneath and scooped all the fish out and put them in the fish tank, and then probably cooked them and fed them to her. But it would have got the same result. Like, we all interpret reality in a different way. I can't teach you anything, but I can help you remember. And so, like, everything that I know, you know. Everything you know, I know on some level, and everything everyone knows, everyone knows. So we're just kind of, you know, we're guides for other people to help them remember, to help them wake up. Some people see, some people they feel, some people just know things. Some people are all three, some people are two. There are days when I see a little bit less, and there's days when I see a lot more, and there's days when I just feel something. So it's just about being extremely present and letting these kind of psychic multi-dimensional abilities kind of just be there in the space, and you can just pick up the info.